Hello guys, welcome back to the video. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to get function indexes because I feel like I didn't explain it well enough in the other tutorial. And I also need to elaborate on how to virtual hook because some people still don't get that. Today we're basically going to be making a hook function. By the end of this video, you should be able to put any U function like function find it. We're going to be able to do that, and then we're going to call it, and we're going to get the function index. So what we should do is we're going to start with server acknowledge possession. So I have my IDA dump here. We're going to search for server acknowledge possession. And boom, here's our offset here. So let's copy it. Let's go to calculator, right? And I'll explain why we're doing this in a minute. We're going to divide the index by 8. So boom, that's 0x104, right? Now, if we take a look at our virtual, oh wait, I don't have that yet. So let's make it. Yay. Okay, virtual hook. We want the BFT as our first parameter. We want the index as our second. And then we want key void hook, or we can call this the detour actually. We want to be fancy and call this the OG and set it to null pointer by default. Now what we want to do is we want to actually check to see if there is an OG. If there is an OG, we want to access it that. Wait, no, if OG, then dereference. Yeah. All right. Now we make a D word for protection, because we need to protect the address before we modify it. So virtual protect BFT index. So that'll work fine. Now the size of this is going to be 8. The reason for that is because we're making it into a void pointer, right, which is the size of 8 bytes, or a pointer in general is 8 bytes for clarification. And we want access to read and write properly, so we're going to use that, and then we're going to apply that to our D-word protection. I didn't spell right, but it's okay. Now we're going to go to we're going to actually access this, and we're going to write to the address detour, right? And then we need to protect it again. So we're going to do virtual protect BFT index 8 again, because it's still our size. But this time we're going to put in the word protection and then your protection again. This basically just uses our old protections that we already have and then resets the protections to that. Okay, so knowing that, right, what we want to do here is, let's say we have our exec address, which can be accessed at function exec function, right? If we turn this into a UN64 and log the value and subtract the image base or whatever, it would lead us to this server acknowledged possession, right? So let's take a look at the opcodes of that address by hitting tab, right? And doing what I just did. So if we click tab here, we can see that the index is actually right here. If we flip these values around, 8, 20, see, these are the 2 bytes that we want, right? Okay, sorry for that burp, that was inappropriate. So what we want, but we also see that a typical call is going to be FF90, right? That's typically what it would be. For other ones that are not, you can usually filter for that, but that's what we're going to be doing. So knowing that, we can use a memory finder, and let's take a look at how memory finders work. So let's search for find pattern, right? Now finding patterns is essentially, we look at all these opcodes, right? Each opcode is a pattern, so to speak. And if we just look for these patterns, like we can use a sig maker to make a sig, which then exposes us to these patterns. They may not always work because sometimes function layouts are different each like compilation time or version, but nonetheless, signatures, that's how signatures work. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to show you the relative offset as well. Relative offset is very important. So we want to get this, right? And it's obviously a call, because it says so right there if we look with our eyes. Songster. Sorry, I'm bullying you a bit. We can see that this is a call. Now, the determination we need to make, is it a relative offset or is it a absolute? Now, if we look at this comment here, it kind of explains it for us. If it's indirect, right, and it even shows you an example. If it's an indirect call to a pointer or access of a pointer, it is absolute offset. That's what you should do all the time. Now, however, if it's not, we want to use relative offset, right? So looking at this, FF90, and looking at this right here, this is not a direct call to a pointer. This is an indirect call. So we would want to use absolute offset. Now, how do we find the number we're going to use? Well, that's pretty simple. So you want to keep going through the opcodes until you figure out which one starts you off at your virtual index. So this is 820, right? So 28, right? You see where it says 20 and then goes to 08? This shows a level of, like, this means after the first 2 bytes is when your index starts. So let's explain this a bit further. So now what we can do is we know that. So let's go to framework. Let's make a hook function, view function, and sure, why not? Let's do just function, and then key void vtor, OG. Set that to null pointer again, because sometimes we don't need an OG. Remember that. I swear some of you guys don't pay attention and end up DMing me questions and start to piss me off. Stop it. So we're also going to make a little handler for it. We're going to call it get function index, right? So now that we have our function here, let's just initialize a variable, call it index for short, and echo function return index, which is being set to 0, right? No issues. What we want to do now is we want to get the exact address. So let's reinterpret cast, or just cast. You can call it whatever you want. I don't really care. You can cast function exec function to exec address. Now that we have that, let's use our memory scanner. So we can initialize, let's take a look. Address is the parameter we're entering, right? Or, some of these. So to initialize address, right, we're basically calling a constructor of a constructor, because we're constructing the address inside of the constructor of scanner. So what we put for that construct is exec address, because if we look closer at the memquery class address, all you have to do to construct it is put in a uint pointer, and that's all you have to do for that. So we're going to initialize that first. We'll call it memquery scanner equals scanner. Right. Okay. So now we need to scan for some bytes. Let's scan for 0xFF 0x90, and the reason we're going to do that, by the way, this is in hex format. The IDE's opcodes are always in hex, so you make sure you use the 0x. Our 2 bytes that we're searching for are 0xFF90 because that's where our index is. Now, however, here's where things get interesting. Certain things have what we call a validate. So if you see something like this, where it's an if before the return, that means your thing has a validate. So what we want to do is we want to skip over that if there is one. So let's go ahead and add the is validate, and we'll assume that naturally it's false. And true if, yeah, we are going forward, so we can set that to true. And we can just set this to be is validate, because if it's false, the value will be 0, right? It won't skip any. If it's true, it'll skip 1 and it'll go to the next one. So that's going to be important for how we get our address here. Okay, getting tons of VMs. Okay, and again, let's set our index now by doing scanner get as uint32 t. But however, we're gonna have to get this as a pointer, unfortunately, because whoever decided to make this code was a bit fat. So we want to have pointer here and then dereference it to get us to the uint32 index. Now we want to divide the index by itself, because again, like I said, you're gonna have to divide by 8 in order to get it ready for virtual, or just calling it in general. If you're calling through a VFT, you have to divide it. It's just law, okay? So we're gonna return the index, right? And now we're going to put this into our hook function. Again, no function, return. And let's wrap this up. Okay. We also want to put in our VFT for the function. So if no function or no VFT, return. However, what we're going to do is all we have to do, uint32 index equals get function index, function v has validate, wait, okay, yeah, we need to also add that as an option. V has validate. And we can set that to false by default. Validate. And now we can do virtual hook. And actually, just to be safe, so I don't get any issues with other people's problems, we're gonna loop through G objects real quick. Okay, safely, of course. And we're gonna do object pointer object G objects get by index I object continue index if object. Actually, no, we don't need to do this. I'm sorry, my bad. I forgot we said our VFT earlier. So let's do our virtual hook VFT index detour and then OG, and boom, our function is systematically done. Now here's another question I get asked a lot. How do I know which thing to use, which would be a theta hook, right? Okay, so let's look at it this way. You want to use whichever has the highest, like, whatever has the highest, what should I call it? Inheritance? Yes. So for A4 player controller Athena, that's the highest you can go on that, right? From A player controller all the way to A4 player controller Athena. That's as high as you can go before you get to the blueprints, right? It doesn't have to be blueprint proper. But, and then for game mode, instead of A4 game mode, or A game mode, you would want to do a fourth game mode Athena, right? So there's always a higher hierarchy. You want to look for the one that's closest to yours. So for our server acknowledged possession, we're gonna call hook function. We're going to do A4 player controller Athena because, and here's how you know which thing is your like owning class. If you look at your first parameter in your program, in your IDA, the first parameter is a player controller. So that pretty much tells us exactly what we need to know. Oh, and again, if you haven't done this, go to your uObjects, change vtable to a void pointer. Void. Let's make a U function. Let's just find it. Function uObject find object U function, and we can actually use our dump for this. Let's go to it. Dumper 8. Let's get 4.1. Let's open up our GObjects dump. Let's search for server acknowledge this session. We want this. Copy this. And then, by the way, that's how you find really anything else. It has every object in the game. Pretty before like the ones that aren't loaded. So has validate true, because we know it does. And I don't know why I put that there. That doesn't quite make sense. Hold on. Okay, there. Fix that. Function. I kind of also moved it around, but that doesn't. It's fine. It's perfectly okay. So let's go in here now. So it looks right. Let's make a void. That's what it returns. Acknowledge possession. A4 player controller. Athena. Wait, no. Yeah. I don't know why. Second guess myself. A1. A pawn. Let's actually name this folder. And let's put server acknowledge possession here. Hooks server acknowledge possession. And we can leave this as no pointer. We don't need an OG. So all we have to do in here, and it's really simple to figure this out. All you have to do is go to GitHub, like literally go to GitHub, go to Unreal Engine, and look at what server acknowledge possession does. You just have to do this. That's about it. And that's pretty much what you gotta do for hooking a function. And we'll test it now with you guys here. Sorry, I'm yelling at someone. They know who they are. Hopefully they watch this video because they need it. Anyways, let's open at, oh, come on. Let's go to 4.1 walkthrough. Yeah, all right. By the way, this should be named 4.1. I'm not. What? Did I just low-key? No, I know I did 4.1. Okay, I did. Loki rage baiting me for a sec. Okay, let's launch up the game. Oh, and by the way, for the trillionth time, in case no one was listening last video, when I said here in spawn default pawn 4 how to fix your issue with your skin showing up on like below 8.51, all you gotta do, apply character customization. You literally only have to do that. Just get the player state from the controller and get the pawn from what you were spawning in. And I forgot this redirect doesn't. So give me a minute. Maybe I have it lower down here. Okay, nice. Lovely. Could also be this back end. Back end sucks ass. This is the most annoying part about season 4. It's not even making a game server, trying to get in lobby. Okay, perfect. But yes, nothing will show up unless you do apply character customization. E-Gator, did you hear me? Sorry, I have to keep doing that because I swear if I don't do that, no one's gonna pay it. These exact people who I'm calling out won't listen. Okay, so 4.1. Okay, what just happened? Let's find out. Just closed for some reason. Oh, nice. It's having a tweak out my thing again. What do you mean access violation? On virtual hooking. How? Okay, hold on. Sit tight. Let's take a look. I don't see any access violations here, but must be right, surely. So let's take a triple look. Let's take like a quadruple look. What's going on? Wait. Let's double check this. Okay, no, this looks right. Maybe we'll just need to name this D, as in my day. Okay, put D. And actually, let's try something new. VFT plus index. VFT plus index. You know, maybe we need a different one for this. Could be wrong. You never know, right? Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna die of cancer. B. Like, it legitimately should not matter what you name those, but okay. If you say so. Visual Studio. And let's do that. And let's also log the index. So let's do it like this. Let's sleep for like a minute just so we can read it. And let's see. Because if the VFT index is wrong, that might be an issue. Let's open the wrong thing. I wasn't paying attention. My bad. My fault. This doesn't work. Honestly, I will just. I'm like, I could just paste in from my universe, but it's fine. Index. Okay, that's a bit too high. That's like way, way, way too high. Oh, I know what our issue is. I completely forgot about like relative offset. Or wait, no, it's absolute. We went over this. My fault. Makes complete sense now. The absolute offset, because of the 2 bytes, is 2. So we're going to put this here. This should work now. Oh, my fault. My bad. Okay. I think it's working now. I'm not totally sure. I probably should have done a log to make sure, but I'm pretty sure it worked. Let me just do a login. I'll do a formal one on abilities a bit later. This was more so just to show you how to hook things without only my help. Sorry, something serious is kind of coming up. Um, Anyways, let me quickly. Add it here just cause technically it should be on apply. It should be on like okay. Let's test. God, my life. I just want to fucking... Anyways. It should work now. Hope y'all are having a bit of a better day than me. And boom, we have our character parts. Server acknowledged possession is getting called. I think my job is done for the day. You're welcome.